Everything started on a rainy evening in 2015. Mark, a young man in his late 20s, had just moved into an old Victorian house in a quiet suburban neighborhood. He loved antique hunting, and one afternoon, he found a magnificent mahogany cabinet in a dusty old shop. The owner, an old man with tired eyes, sold it to him for an astonishingly low price, claiming it was a lot of trouble. The intricate carvings on its surface depicted unsettling, almost serpentine figures writhing around a central, empty space. Soon after, in 2016, the strange events began. Late one night, Mark was awakened by a faint scraping sound coming from the living room. He went to investigate and found the cabinet's doors ajar, although he was certain he'd locked them. The air around it felt unnaturally cold, dropping to a bone-chilling 40 degrees Fahrenheit. He shivered and closed the doors, but the feeling of being watched lingered. As 2017 rolled around, the disturbances grew more aggressive. Mark's beloved dog, an old golden retriever named Bailey, started showing signs of extreme fear. Whenever she was in the same room as the cabinet, she would growl and whine, her fur standing on end. She began to avoid the living room entirely. One night, Mark was watching TV when he heard a clear, whispered plea for help coming from inside the cabinet. The voice was a child's, and it filled him with a dread he couldn't explain. He frantically checked the cabinet, but found nothing but empty space. By 2018, Mark's research into the cabinet's origins had consumed him. He found an old newspaper article from 1932 detailing the mysterious disappearance of the Casson family parents and their two small children from their home. The only thing left behind was the cabinet. He traced its history back, even further, to the 1800s, when it was crafted by a strange occultist named Silas. Rumor had it that Silas used the cabinet in his dark rituals, believing it could trap the souls of the innocent. It was said that the cabinet demanded a new soul every few decades to remain dormant. The previous disappearances had occurred in 1932, 1968, and 1999. Mark realized the pattern was eerily close to the present day. The final and most horrifying stage of the curse manifested in 2019. Mark started experiencing vivid nightmares where he was trapped inside the cabinet with the Casson family, their faces gaunt and their eyes filled with despair. He would wake up to find fresh scratches on the inside of the cabinet doors. The whispers had now turned into terrifying screams and laughter. One evening, Mark's girlfriend, Emily, discovered a series of notes hidden behind a loose piece of wood on the cabinet. The notes were written by the previous owner, a man who had gone missing in 2001. The final note read, "It doesn't want my life, it wants my memories. It wants me to be an empty shell for them to fill." The night of October 31, 2019, marked the end of the line. As the clock struck midnight, the cabinet doors flew open with a violent slam. A terrifying, cold wind swept through the room, and Mark saw the faces of the Casson family, their eyes hollow and black, staring out from the empty space inside. The whispers intensified, all of them speaking in unison, "Join us. There is so much room for another." The curse wasn't just about a single death. It was about stealing a life piece by piece until the victim was completely consumed. Mark was the new addition. The next day, Emily found the house eerily quiet. The cabinet was there, standing in the middle of the room, looking innocent. Mark was nowhere to be found. The police filed a missing persons report, but the only evidence left was a single, cryptic phrase carved into the side of the cabinet: "The 6th." The town of Ashwood was a place of quiet, haunting beauty, surrounded by dense forests. But any visitor could feel a strange, silent sadness in the air. This sadness had settled here over the past 15 years. It wasn't that people simply lost their minds. They became fixated on their deepest, most terrifying regrets. These regrets would consume their entire lives. Behind these events was a collector who enslaved people to their own regrets, shattering their sanity. His name was Elias. Mark, a talented journalist, came to this town for a break. His own life was full of such regret. His sister, Clara, had disappeared years ago, and Mark blamed himself for not being able to protect her. This regret had left a deep scar on his mind. Mark began investigating the strange cases in the area. His editor sent him a file on Dr. Anya Sharma, a psychologist who had vanished while investigating these events. Her final notes contained a name: the Collector. The name sent a strange chill down Mark's spine. The peculiar events in the town brought Mark back to his own regrets. One woman spent her days searching the streets for a lost watch, reliving her final conversation with her mother. Another man built a replica of the car he crashed years ago, believing his dead wife was still inside. These events disturbed Mark. Each story reminded him of the 15 years of regret he felt over Clara. He began to see Clara's face in reflections, hear her voice calling his name, and felt as if she was accusing him. He walked into an old shop in the town and met Elias. Elias was a kind, gentle, and very intelligent old man. He listened intently to Mark's story. There was a strange sadness in his eyes as well. Elias handed Mark an antique pocket watch. "This watch will help you keep your time straight," Elias said. Mark took the watch and kept it with him at all times. Mark found Dr. Anya Sharma's old house. Inside, he discovered a hidden room containing a voice recorder. In the recordings, Dr. Anya laid out her theory. "Someone is targeting people's regrets and driving them insane," she said. She spoke of a sonic frequency that seemed to amplify people's guilt. In her final recording, her panicked voice whispered, "He knows my regret. He's here." The Collector. Mark's life slowly turned into a nightmare. The watch Elias had given him began ticking at strange intervals, out of sync with real time. He started seeing Clara's reflection in mirrors and hearing her voice. Mark was slowly losing his mind, consumed by his own regrets. Suspecting Elias, Mark went to his shop and told him everything. Elias listened calmly, with a serious face. He simply smiled at Mark's words and tried to calm him down. "You are just too tired," Elias said gently, but his words only heightened Mark's terror. Unconvinced, Mark broke into Elias's house that night. It wasn't a house, but a labyrinth. Each room was dedicated to a different person from the town, filled with objects tied to their specific regrets. There were 27 rooms, each corresponding to a documented case. A terrifying, complex device stood in the center of the main chamber. It wasn't a sound machine. It was a consciousness manipulation device. This machine could project a person's deepest regret directly into their mind. Elias had perfected the technology of the horrifying silence from the previous stories. Elias was waiting for Mark. A strange smile was on his face. "I am not a killer. I am a savior," Elias said. He explained that he had lost his own family, and that his regret had consumed him, turning him into this being, the Collector. He now sought to save others by forcing them to accept their demons. Suddenly, the ghost of Clara appeared before Mark, not as a reflection, but as a solid, living hallucination created by Elias's machine. Clara's ghost blamed Mark for her death. Mark had to fight not a physical monster, but his own mind, his own guilt. Mark tried to destroy the machine, but in his panic state, Elias trapped him. Mark's final moments were a desperate struggle. Elias successfully projected Mark's regret into his mind, trapping him forever. Elias then began adding Mark's belongings to his collection, starting with the antique pocket watch. Elias walked slowly through the town, his eyes scanning for another regret, another victim. He was the Collector, and his work was never done.